So, Linda, I'm thinking about special events, and the word complicated comes to my mind, that these can sometimes be complicated to pull off, or at least to think through all the aspects of doing an event well. Talk to us about some best practices you've seen in which an advisor utilizes the entire team to execute.
Well, it's a wonderful thought, because what do we even mean by team? For example, there's so many different kinds of events. There are large events where, some of the major financial services firms will do things like host an art gallery opening or invite people to a really special sporting event. And then there are, the more intimate events where you might host a retirement dinner for a client, or you might do a prospecting event where there's a seminar on best practices in retirement. I mean, it's such a wide variety. So you really want to look at a couple of things when you're thinking about special events. First of all, going back to your communication plan, you want to make sure that you're not leaving people out. There are appreciation events, there are client education events. As part of that plan, there should be an intention to at least invite every client to something if you possibly can. Mm-hmm. A lot of the work here tends to fall on the shoulders of the sales assistant, for example, on a team. And you want to make sure that you're not necessarily overburdening that person. Now, one of the ways to get through that is to make your events, or at least the routine around invitation, follow-up, or invitation and then confirmation and then follow-up, to make those routines simply repeatable. Again, you see advisors and practices just reinventing the wheel, just over and over again. So you want it to be a replicable process. The second thing that you want to think about, especially with events where you're going to invite prospects, there are so many advisors, so many practitioners who are wonderful speakers. But unless you are a 100% comfortable speaker, not a great idea for you necessarily to speak at your own event, because your purpose there really is to get to know the people, to shake the hands of the clients, to get to meet the people that you've invited. Another factor here is that I've seen, unfortunately, far too many advisors essentially go to war with their firm's compliance department. Oh, I've got the best idea, since sliced bread, and compliance just has to be careful. I know when I was in production, I used to sometimes refer to compliance as the BPUs, the business prevention units. In my years as a consultant, I've become much, much more aware of the vital role that they play in protecting all of us. So we want to respect those folks. So you want to keep it simple, replicable. You want to make sure that you are leveraging the abilities of the team without overburdening any one person. Use the resources that your firm provides as well. Many firms that we deal with offer their advisors complete packages. Here's how to do a special event. Why reinvent it when it's handed to you on a platter? The important thing always is the client experience.
Got it. So thinking about this issue of scalability and repeatability, Bill, it would seem that technology, your CRM, could play a real vital role in helping you to scale, because, as we've talked about with regard to other things, the first time you do something is often the toughest time that you do it. It's the second time, the third time, the fourth time that you really get efficiencies, that you really get scalability. How can technology help speed that process?
Well, that's a great question, and it really boils down to a couple of things. First is research, and the second then is sort of the operationalization of your process.
Okay.
So let's talk about research first. One of the things that we're going to work on as we get to know our clients is, what are their interests? What are their preferences? They may have food preferences, they may have wine preferences, they may have interest in hobbies, they may have interest in types of literature, types of music. So anything that we can glean to really understand what their interests and preferences are, we need to be able to capture that and go to the CRM and make sure that that's coded in there. So coding and capturing the information is really important. Don't forget, your social media capabilities can also be a great source for understanding the client without actually having to overtly ask them for that information. It's a lot of fun to see someone post something and then have the opportunity to say, "Oh, I didn't know you liked that in your response. This is really great to know." It's just a way to sort of be connected, right? So once the information is in there, then you can run reports to understand if you've got clusters of people with the same types of interest. And that's very important, because if we were to think about special events, even our more global communication plan that we're putting into place, a lot of advisors have found that it's very helpful to sit down and do an initial planning session at the beginning of the year. identifying what kind of special events and where they're going to fall on the calendar, what they're going to be. So master calendar planning is really helpful.
You know, as I'm listening to you, Bill, I'm reminded of something. Many practitioners will use special events as a sort of a combination of appreciation for current clients and a way to bring new prospects into their orbit. And of course, one of the big challenges always is the client who brings a friend who's simply not qualified to be a client, and then they're utterly charmed by you, and you have an awkward conversation. So when we're delivering a verbal invitation, one of the things that I've learned over the years is to pre-qualify the invitation. So, for example, one of my favorite special events is, and many people are running this, a sort of breakfast at Tiffany's sort of thing for many of the wives who maybe have not been as active with the relationship with their advisor. So you bring together, say, half a dozen of those wives to have a little sort of private showing at Tiffany. Well, how do you then invite a prospect? I go back to your wife, and I say, Tracy, we have a little bit of additional capacity. If you'd like to invite a friend to come along, a colleague, a sister-in-law, a sister, we would more than welcome her, as long as she's somebody who'd be comfortable at a private showing at Tiffany. Or as long as he's somebody who would be comfortable around the table at a C-level conversation. Now, that won't absolutely always guarantee that you won't get somebody not qualified to be your client, but it does sort of narrow the channel, if you will.
A great thought.
Yeah, really good.